Yes. So those are two excellent questions, right? So the first one, the myth of I don't push myself, right? So I hear that all the time, right? I don't push myself. I know my limits. I've never had a problem, this sort of stuff, right? So here's a really good way to, I think, explain that. So almost everyone who's listening has probably sat on the couch and seen how long they've held their breath, right? It probably in some manner on dry land or whatever, you've held your breath. And if you've ever held your breath before, there's this part when you first start holding your breath, it actually feels pleasant and nice. I always tell my students, enjoy that part because it's going to get sucky later, right? So, but there's that pleasant part in the beginning. And then as you hold your breath longer, typically people say they feel an urge to swallow, and then maybe they're going to start feeling contractions. It's like a hiccup, your diaphragm squeezes, and you start having these contractions, and it gets, all that gets more and more uncomfortable, more contractions, stronger urge to breathe. This is not fun. I hate this. And then you're like, you start breathing, you can't do this anymore, right? So if you were to graph that experience, and I were to graph your breath hold time and your discomfort level, it would be a straight 45-degree line, which intuitively everyone understands. The longer you hold your breath, the suckier it gets. You're like, all right, Ted, that's brilliant. I already knew that. Not why are we talking about it? I've never thought about it, but you intuitively understand that. So people understand that, they get these worse and worse feelings the longer and longer they hold their breath. So then they jump in the water and they go diving. And they go, yeah, but I don't push myself, but I know my limits. And they assume you're going to get that same steady increase in discomfort level. But when you're diving in the ocean, it does not work that way. It's because of physics and partial pressure of oxygen. So what's happening is you're not going to get that slow, steady increase in signals that you get when you're driving on dry land, right? It's going to happen very suddenly, if not immediately. Most people, not every single one, but most blackouts, the person had no idea that anything is wrong, right? That's why I love that video that I was referencing earlier. You see this spearfisherman, he had no idea anything's wrong. They ran and talked to him. He had no idea anything's wrong, right? I've talked to so many people that have had blackouts, spearfishers. They felt fine. Half the time they argue with the person when they get brought to that they're, no, I didn't black out. I remember the whole thing. It wouldn't get off of me. What are you doing, right? And so, if you're not going to feel that anything is wrong, because it gets very, very complicated. I don't get into it, but the idea is your partial pressure drops as you get close to the surface. If you get 30 feet to the surface, your partial pressure drops almost in half, right? And it's that partial pressure what's keeping you conscious. And so it drops so rapidly, and that's what causes you to have these blackouts. So the idea is if you're not going to feel it because of physics, then when you're saying, but Ted, I don't push myself. I know my limits. I've never had a problem. It just, it doesn't add up in the real world. I always like to say, you don't see skydivers saying, look, I've been skydiving for 15 years. I'm like so good. I'm like a badass skydiver. I'm so good at skydiving. I'm so sick of packing that reserve chute. It's such a pain in the butt. I'm just not going to do it anymore. I'm just not going to bring the reserve chute. No, of course they don't do that because they don't want to go splat, right? So, just that argument that the problem with the I don't push myself argument is it's always correct until you're dead.
Not. Yeah.
That's the way that argument is. And it's very difficult to convince someone that's saying, but I've been doing it for 20 years and I've never had a problem. But that's awesome. I hope you never do have a problem. But, if you do have one, the way that you're set up, you're going to be dead. And I would rather not be set up that way.